The narrowing highway. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desolate highway. Mike had heard the rumors about this stretch of road, but he had dismissed them as mere urban legends. He had a long drive ahead of him, and this shortcut through the winding, narrow highway was supposed to save him hours. Little did he know that he was about to enter a nightmare that defied explanation. As Mike's car tires rumbled onto the cracked asphalt, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The road ahead seemed normal at first, but as he drove farther into the night, he noticed something odd. The highway was becoming increasingly narrow. At first, it was subtle, barely noticeable, but soon it became undeniable. Mike's heart began to race as the highway closed in around him. He checked the GPS on his phone, hoping to find an alternative route, but there was no signal. Panic gnawed at his mind as he contemplated turning back, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the road behind him had vanished, leaving him with no choice but to go forward. The darkness seemed to encroach upon the road, the trees on either side leaning closer and closer, their branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. The air grew cold and heavy, and Mike's breath formed a mist in front of him. He switched on his headlights, but they barely cut through the oppressive gloom. The road continued to narrow, now so tight that Mike could feel the side mirrors brushing against the gnarled branches of the trees. He tried to maintain his composure, telling himself that this was just a strange optical illusion, but he couldn't escape the feeling that the road was alive, closing in on him like a predatory serpent. Suddenly, he heard whispers, faint and distant at first, but growing steadily louder. He couldn't make out the words, but they were filled with malice, as though the very road itself was taunting him. Mike's heart pounded in his chest as he accelerated, desperate to escape this nightmarish corridor. The highway continued to narrow, the whispers grew louder, and Mike's car began to creak and groan as if it were being crushed by invisible hands. He was trapped in a claustrophobic nightmare, the walls of the road squeezing the life out of him. As his heart pounded in his chest, Mike's trembling hands brought the car to a screeching halt, just inches from the gnarled branches that seemed poised to claim him. He closed his eyes, unable to bear the impending collision, but the impact never came. A voice broke the silence. "Keep driving," it whispered, low and sinister, yet oddly soothing. Mike's eyes shot open and he turned to see a man standing beside his car, a shadowy figure cloaked in darkness. The stranger's appearance was unsettling. He had a pale, almost translucent complexion, with eyes that gleamed like cold steel. "You have no choice," the man hissed. "You must continue down this path. It's the only way." Mike's fear warred with his desperation to escape this nightmare. He glanced at the rearview mirror, and the road behind him had transformed once more into a claustrophobic corridor. He knew he couldn't turn back. The road seemed to defy all logic. Reluctantly, Mike nodded, his hands trembling as he released the brakes and pressed on the gas pedal. The car lurched forward, and the narrow highway resumed its relentless, crushing advance. The mysterious man remained by Mike's side, a silent presence as the car navigated the ever-narrowing road. The whispers returned, louder and more malevolent than before, and Mike's grip on reality began to slip. Hours passed, or perhaps it was only minutes, but the road eventually relented. The highway widened once more, and the nightmarish ordeal came to an end. The mysterious man, his eyes never leaving Mike, simply faded into the shadows and disappeared. Mike continued his journey, forever haunted by the encounter. He couldn't explain what had happened, but he knew one thing. He had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death that night, and he would never forget the sinister highway and the enigmatic stranger who had guided him through its depths.